Hope you are doing well. Today, horror incident about unseen entity or demon. This is the story shared by Roger. This incident took place in 2011. I was working on the night shift at that time. To reach the cab, I had to walk for about 10 minutes since our street had a block in the road to prevent four-wheeler from passing through. Opposite our house, there was a cemetery, and being on the first floor, I had a clear view of what was happening there. One night, as I was leaving for work, I saw the person who worked as an undertaker coming from the cemetery. At first, I thought he was heading somewhere else, but he came up to me and asked, "Did you see her?" I was confused and asked him who he was talking about. He got angrier and repeated his question. "Did you see her or not?" Thinking he might be drunk, I decided to leave without saying anything. The next day, a new person was at the cemetery, and he came to our house to get some water. Curious about the previous person, I asked about him. To my shock, he told me that the man had died in a car accident 2 days ago. And his funeral had been just the day before. I was stunned, wondering how I had seen him the previous night when he had died 2 days ago. The experience left me horrified, and after a couple of months, we decided to move out of that place. The memory of that eerie encounter still haunts me to this day. Despite the eerie experience, life went on. The night shifts were still demanding, and my routine stayed the same. Every evening, as the sun went down, I would prepare for my walk to the cab pickup point. The cemetery, with its tall, old trees and shadowy corners, became a place I dreaded passing by. The undertaker's face and his haunting question replayed in my mind over and over. One particularly foggy night, about a week after the incident, I was making my way to the cab when I noticed a figure standing by the gate of the cemetery. My heart raced as I squinted through the thick mist. It was the new undertaker, or so I hoped. I walked faster, eager to pass by without any interaction. But as I got closer, he called out to me. "Evening," he said, his voice low and steady. "Are you the one who saw the previous undertaker?" I nodded hesitantly. Yes, I did. But it was strange because I learned he had already passed away. The undertaker nodded, his expression unreadable. "There have been stories about this cemetery," he began. "Stories that go back decades. Some say the spirits of those who died tragically or with unfinished business linger here." I felt a chill run down my spine. "Do you believe in those stories?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He shrugged. "I've been working in cemeteries for many years. I've seen things I can't explain. But what I believe doesn't matter as much as what you've experienced. Be careful, and if you see anything unusual again, it's best not to engage." I nodded, thanked him for his advice, and continued on my way. The fog seemed thicker, the shadows darker. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Every rustle of leaves, every distant sound made me jump. The cemetery had always been a silent, somber place, but now it felt alive with unseen eyes. The following nights were uneventful, but the memory of the encounter never left me. I started avoiding looking directly at the cemetery, focusing instead on the path ahead. But one night, curiosity got the better of me. As I passed by, I glanced towards the graves. In the dim light of the moon, I saw a figure, a woman, standing near one of the tombstones. She was dressed in an old-fashioned dress, her long hair cascading over her shoulders. She seemed to be weeping, her body shaking with silent sobs. I stopped in my tracks, my heart pounding in my chest. Was this her the previous undertaker had referred to? I watched, frozen in place, as the woman slowly turned to face me. Her eyes were hollow, filled with a sorrow so deep it seemed to pierce through me. I blinked, and she was gone. I ran the rest of the way to the cab, my mind racing with questions. Who was she? Why was she crying? And why had the undertaker wanted me to see her? The encounter left me shaken, and that night at work, I could hardly concentrate. Determined to find some answers, I decided to visit the local library on my day off. There had to be some records or stories about the cemetery that could explain what I had seen. I spent hours going through old newspapers and historical records. I discovered that the cemetery had been there for over a century. Many of the graves belonged to people who had died young or under tragic circumstances. One story, in particular, caught my attention. It was about a young woman named Emily, who had died in a car accident on the very road where the cemetery now stood. Her death had been sudden and tragic, and according to the reports, she was buried in that cemetery. Could this Emily be the woman I had seen? The dates matched up, and the description of her dress in the old photographs looked eerily similar to what I had seen that night. Armed with this information, I decided to return to the cemetery during the day. I found Emily's grave easily. It was a modest headstone, weathered by time, but her name and the date of her death was still readable. I stood there for a long time, paying my respects and silently asking her spirit to rest in peace. For a while, things seemed to settle down. I no longer saw the woman, and the cemetery seemed to return to its usual, quiet state. But one night, about a month later, as I was making my way to the cab, I saw something that made my blood run cold. There, standing at the gate of the cemetery, was the previous undertaker. His eyes locked onto mine, and he smiled, a smile that sent shivers down my spine. "Did you see her?" he asked again, his voice echoing in the silent night. I nodded slowly, too frightened to speak. "Good," he said. "She needs help. Find out what happened to her." And just like that, he vanished. I stood there, my mind spinning. What did he mean, find out what happened to her? Hadn't I already done that? Or was there more to the story than I knew? Determined to get to the bottom of this mystery, I revisited the library, and dug deeper into Emily's past. I found out that Emily had been engaged to a young man named Thomas. They were very much in love, but their relationship had been marked by a series of unfortunate events. Thomas had been driving the car that night. According to the reports, he survived the accident but was devastated by Emily's death. He disappeared shortly after the funeral, and no one knew what had happened to him. I couldn't shake the feeling that Thomas held the key to the mystery. I began searching for any information about his whereabouts after the accident. It wasn't easy. But after weeks of digging, I found a small note in a local newspaper from a few years back. It mentioned a man matching Thomas's description living in a nearby town. On my next day off, I drove to the town mentioned in the article. It was a small, quiet place, and I hoped that someone might remember Thomas. I visited the local diner and started a conversation with the waitress. "Do you remember a man named Thomas who used to live here?" I asked. She nodded. "Oh, yes. Thomas was a regular here. He was a quiet man, always seemed lost in thought. He passed away a couple of years ago, though. Heart attack, they said." My heart sank. Had I reached another dead end? "Do you know where he's buried?" "There's a small cemetery just outside of town," she replied. "You might find him there?" I thanked her and headed to the cemetery. It was a peaceful place, surrounded by trees and flowers. I found Thomas's grave easily. It was simple, just like Emily's. I stood there, thinking about the tragic love story that had ended so abruptly. As I was about to leave, I noticed something strange. There was a small, old box tucked behind Thomas's headstone. Curious, I opened it. Inside, I found a bundle of letters, carefully tied with a ribbon. They were addressed to Emily, written by Thomas. I took the letters home and spent the evening reading them. Each letter was filled with love, regret, and sorrow. Thomas wrote about the accident, how it haunted him every day. He felt responsible for Emily's death and couldn't forgive himself. In his last letter, dated shortly before his death, he wrote, "Emily, I am so sorry. I wish I could turn back time and change what happened. I hope you can forgive me. I will love you forever." Tears filled my eyes as I read those words. Thomas had been living with a guilt so heavy it had consumed him. I realized then that Emily's spirit might still be lingering because she needed closure. She needed to know that Thomas had never stopped loving her and had wanted her forgiveness. Armed with this new understanding, I returned to Emily's grave the next day. I brought the letters with me and placed them on her grave. I spoke softly, hoping she could. It's my advice, if you ever visit, remember to be careful around the river and the forest, for the spirits there are hungry for fear always inquire about the house before moving. Keep yourself and others safe from any type of scary activity. Thanks for watching. Please like, share and subscribe.